And Apple has locked in on an on-again, off-again relationship with the FBI and Department of Justice for years, since encryption and backdoors became an issue following a spate of domestic terror events in the U.S. over the last decade. But it seems Apple is quietly making nice with the feds now by dropping their plans to encrypt iCloud. Meanwhile, as D.C. is awash with impeachment everything, Lev Parnas, the friend of Rudy Giuliani, who claims to have been the middleman for the president in Ukraine, gets his iPhone 11 hacked into by the FBI following his arrest 2 months ago. For more on this tech drama, let's bring in investigative journalist Ben Swann. So Ben, first, can you break down for us what Apple just did for the FBI by not encrypting the cloud?
Right. So apparently we have just learned about this, but it wasn't something they just did. It was actually 2 years ago. Apple had plans to essentially encrypt. They have end-to-end encryption right now on their iPhones, but they plan to also encrypt data that was going up to iCloud. They made a decision 2 years ago to not do that. And the reason they did, which we've just learned about, is because of pressure that was put on them following the San Bernardino shooter. Because remember, the FBI had demanded access to the San Bernardino shooter's phone. Apple did not give it to them. Then they were planning to encrypt iCloud information for backups and decided not to. And essentially they said it was because they didn't want to continue to fight with the FBI. So what this essentially means is that Apple has encrypted end-to-end encryption on the iPhone. However, they have not done so on their iCloud, and all those iCloud backups can be read not only by law enforcement, but by Apple themselves.
And publicly, Ben, Apple keeps putting up, a fight in the courtroom. Yes. They talk to the media. They say that they are protecting customers' privacy. But what's really happening behind the scenes then?
Well, I think they're not really actually protecting customers' privacy at all, because two things are happening. One is that, number one, Apple, again, they're not encrypting the data that's in the iCloud, which means all of your backups are showing up there. But number two, Apple also outed themselves at CES recently when they were talking about child pornography. Right. And they said that they have a system that allows them to go through and scan iCloud user accounts looking for child pornography to make sure that iCloud is not being abused in this way. What that means is that Apple is scanning everyone's iCloud account and looking for information on what's in there. Now, they say they're doing it for this good moral reason, and they may be, and it may be exclusively for that, but if they can for one thing, then they can for any other thing, and that's essentially the problem here. And
what about the FBI and the DOJ's public pleading? They keep pleading for Apple to help us, create these back doors for us so we can investigate or stop potential terrorists or child porn, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. But in comes this Lev Parnas guy into this whole impeachment scandal, and boom, 2 months. They are suddenly able to get into Parnas's phone without any help from Apple. So what gives? I mean, is this like a political move? Is it related to politics somehow? So it's a couple things, and it's kind of a funny question. So, okay, start with, yes, Attorney General Bill Barr is essentially going around saying end-to-end encryption cannot happen and law enforcement has to have a backdoor, which is nonsense, by the way, because if law enforcement has a backdoor, then hackers do too. But that's what he says. He's saying this to Apple, he's saying it to Facebook, he's saying it to others. Yeah. Okay. So that is one conversation. Separately, this whole deal with Les Parnas, look, the thing about this is, number one, Les Parnas had an iPhone 11, which means he has the most up-to-date, current, the newest one, form of Apple technology. It's not like they hacked into an old phone. Right. Number two, there is no actual proof that the FBI actually hacked into this phone. There's a couple of interesting things about this. Number one, the FBI said it took them 2 months. Now, we don't know if it took 2 months to do it or if they simply had the phone for 2 months and then handed it over. Number three, if you look at how this process has happened and the information that has come out, it appears the FBI did not do this themselves. It's actually an Israeli tech company called Cellbrite that claims it has the ability to get around a lot of the protections. So it looks like the FBI took this phone, they sent it to this Israeli company, and the company did it. And that's one reason the FBI is still complaining, is because technologically the FBI doesn't have the ability to still be able to get into these phones, and so they're having to farm it out to these other companies. So real quickly, while I still have a little bit of time, if they are farming things like this out, and companies are out there that can hack into these phones, doesn't that present another privacy concern for even people like this guy? I mean, he's been indicted, but he's not convicted of anything. I mean, so look, there is no technology that is not crackable in some form, and so yes, it's very possible that this Israeli company is able to do this. They may be able to. Here's the problem for the FBI. That would require the FBI to go out and physically take
and get a hold of all these physical devices and send them one at a time off to these companies. That's not what they want. What the FBI, what the DOJ wants is a system built into the iOS design, built into WhatsApp, that allows them to simply access phones and access iCloud accounts and access your message history anytime they want remotely. That's what they would prefer. That's what they're pushing for. It's not about saying this is impossible. Nothing's really impossible in the technological world. It's saying we want this to be as easy as possible for law enforcement.
Totally different argument.
Totally different. Can't make that one in front of a microphone, though.
Right. But they're saying just hook us up.
Hook us up.
Make it happen.
Let's make it happen, Tim Cook.
Here's 20.
That's right.
Make it happen. All right, Ben Swann, thank you so much for clearing all of that up for us.
You got it, Manila. Thanks.